Alright, looks like we got 10 there. Today we're going to go over mostly NOTAMs. We'll do some exercises, and then there's a little bit with ATC we're going to look back into. Do you guys all remember kind of what we were talking about NOTAMs were?
Isn't it like weather notice?
No, it's a notice to airmen or something like that.
Yeah, notice to airmen. And basically what it is it's going to be anything that's broken or anything that has to be changed at our airports we're using. So let me get this full screened here. So basically what we're looking at is this is going to be any irregularities at our departure airport, our destination airport, any airport we're using. If there's an irregularity about it, they're going to post a NOTAM about it. If not, everything is as it's published on either departure charts or arrival charts or anything like that, or you just assume that everything is in service. If it's not in service or something's not working, oops, there we go, then they're going to put a NOTAM out about it. So when we look at these NOTAMs, a lot of times, I'll pull some up just so you can kind of get a look here. A lot of times they look almost kind of daunting. And you're like, oh my gosh, there's so many of them, and there's so many abbreviations. And it looks kind of like you just don't want to read them all. But most of them actually have nothing to do with us. So when you're looking at them like this. So let's go ahead and break down, once we're looking at them, what's important to us. So when you're looking at this NOTAM right here, your first three letters are going to be where your NOTAM is. So DEN is Denver. These two numbers are going to be the month that it was issued. And then this is the NOTAM number within that month. So this would be the 48th NOTAM in October. And then we have the airport again. And then what this starts as what we're looking at. So 17 right. And then the ALS. So we can go look these up. This is just going to be your approach lighting system out of service. And then when we look over here, so then this will be from 2007. So this starts our year, the 10th month. I'm trying to highlight this. 10th month, 4th day. And then this is our time of when this is issued at 14 Zulu. We're always looking at Zulu time. And this is good until October 10th, or October 4th, sorry, till 21 Zulu. So this NOTAM is actually only out for like 7 hours. And that happens a lot. A lot of times they're just doing maintenance on them, and it's just a scheduled thing. So we'll look at this next one here. So we're looking at Denver again. Still the 10th month. This would have been a earlier one. So this is the 45th. Denver. TDWR. Does anyone know what that means? I don't actually know what it means.
Weather radar.
Yeah, actually, well done. Okay. A lot of this stuff, even when we're looking at them, is not super important to us unless there's either bad weather um, or we think it actually affects us. So half the time, I just kind of know the ones that are important for us. And then we're looking at here again, 2007, October 4th, from 13 to 19 Zulu. So let's go ahead and go pull up some NOTAMs for an airport. We'll kind of look at like real time what's going on. All right, we're going to go look at Denver's again. I'll show you why later. So these are all our real-time NOTAMs. So first here, we're starting out. This is going to be in a little bit different form because they already know we're looking at Denver. But still, same thing applies. So the 8th month, and this is the 582nd NOTAM that they put out this month. It's pretty typical of a large airport to be putting out a ton of NOTAMs. If we look at smaller airports, most of them only put out they've only got like just a handful of NOTAMs. So then we start looking at these first few letters right here. So if you go down, a lot of times you'll realize that a lot of these are in very similar format. So 3-letter code, 3-letter code, 3-letter code, 3-letter code, all the way down. So SVC stands for service, navigation, clearly. Runway, taxiway. Most of the time we don't really care about taxiway at all. We kind of just scan over those. Communication, obstacle. Here we're looking at Microburst, weather detection system not available. This, right now, I don't know what the weather's like in Denver, but this might be an issue. It might not. Let's go and see if it is. I'm going to pull up some weather here real time so we can kind of look at this. My guess is no, that it's probably totally fine. But if there are thunderstorms or something sitting right over Denver, this might be something we wanted to look into. All right, it's pulling up. We use WSI a lot at SkyWest. They're one of the industry leaders in weather. Here we go. So we can just kind of look at the SIGMETS page here real quick. And realize that there's not much going on over Denver right now. So that doesn't really affect us much. We're not going to be worried about the microburst and weather detection system. So we would just basically skim over that. Then we kind of go down to this next one. So nav ILS. You guys remember what ILS is? It's our
Instrument landing system.
Yeah, there we go. So our DME is unusable for that. So that's kind of more, once we start looking at our landing minimums for that, we start looking at, okay, if the DME gets taken away and maybe we're expecting really thick fog in Denver, that might change our landing minimums. So we might have to be looking at, it might end up adding like 100 feet to our ceiling or something like that. So that's one we need to look at, unless it's going to be great weather. And if it's great weather, then most of the time we just don't care. We keep skimming. 34 right. So this is the same piece of concrete when we're looking at these runways. So 16 left is going to be going one way, 34 right is going to be going the other. They're just the reciprocals. Same piece of concrete. Technically two different runways, but same piece of concrete. So you got one going one way and the other going the other way, and the DME is out on both of them. But Denver's got 6 runways, and I know at least 4 of them have ILSs. Or 6 pieces of concrete. Technically it'd be even more than that with ILSs and stuff. So we're not super worried about that. Then we're looking 16 right, the PAPI US basically means we can't use it. It's I think unserviceable. Means it's out. Let's see. Oh, it's not even on here. Also, I sent you guys an email with this link in it to the NOTAM's contractions here, because we're going to do some exercises here in a few minutes of decoding NOTAMs and kind of just what they mean. And so you can use this to go back and look at that. Let me know if you did not get that email. The PAPI is basically just a that's the 2 red, 2 white thing. You're coming down, and if you're on the glide path, it's 2 red, 2 white. If you're not, if you're above or below, the lights change. You guys remember talking about that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we're looking at runway. So runway, that should stick out to us. 34 right, 6,000 feet, distance remaining sign. We're not real worried about that. Not real worried about distance remaining. Not worried about taxiway. Not worried about taxiway. Not worried about taxiway. Runway 16 left. The runway threshold lights out of service. That's not really something we're worried about either. Taxiway, not worried about. COM, 3GZ, Greenhorn remote outlet, commissioned. We're not really worried about that. Obstacle crane. This is probably my biggest pet peeve that we have to look at these, because we do a lot of flying in and out of San Francisco at SkyWest, and they have about 50 gazillion cranes there right now. But we don't really need to worry about any of them unless it closes something. But when you just see obstacle crane, we're basically not worried about it. You know, apron de-ice pad. Do you guys think we're worried about de-icing right now?
No.
Hopefully
Yeah.
not.
No.
Yeah.
Summertime.
No, it's probably pretty hot there right now.
Hey,
So-
Davis, when you say crane in San Francisco, do you mean like the bird or do you mean like the construction device?
Construction
Long,
device.
tall metal thing.
I'll show you. It's very annoying. So yeah, we're looking here. Obstacle crane, obstacle crane. Obstacle crane. Yeah, they're doing a bunch of the construction there right now. And then we get even more crane, 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 obstacle rig.
It probably shows cranes for Salt Lake too, right?
Yeah, because they're doing a lot of construction there right now too.
Yeah. There's like 10 cranes up right now.
Let's see. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of them up there right now. Yep, crane, 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 crane. Most of them are not anywhere even close to like what you would be flying to, unless maybe you were doing like a circle to land. And if you were, that wouldn't even be like that wouldn't be an airport where you'd probably really do that. They've got like 5 or 6 ILSs, I think. And so you'd almost never have to shoot a circle to land unless they were all notamed out for some reason. And but if you had to do a circle to land, then you basically like shoot one approach and then you come back around to another, and you have to have really high minimums, and a lot of times you fly pretty low, and then you might be worried about a crane. But in these big airports, we're not really worried about cranes at all. But let's go back to Denver because I was going to show you something further down. So you can kind of see there's a huge page of NOTAMs. Half of this does not pertain to us. More than half doesn't pertain to us at all. But let's say we're scanning down through here and none of this affects us, and then all of a sudden we see this one. DVV nav VORTAC. It's out. And then this actually has it all written out for us, which is nice. But if we've got a VORTAC out of service and it's in the NOTAMs, it's probably pretty important. It's probably something that a VOR approach is based off of, or maybe something in a missed approach procedure, or something we use in a departure or arrival, something like that. So that one's definitely one we need to keep in mind there. We need to go and see and make sure we're not using that. But so, based on that, once we get down here to the FDC NOTAMs, so there's 2 types of NOTAMs. There's D NOTAMs, which are just regular NOTAMs, and those are the ones with all our equipment. Those are the local NOTAMs. So D NOTAMs are local NOTAMs. Know that. And then we have FDC NOTAMs, which are, they're going to change stuff that's more like published procedures or instrument procedures. That's what they're going to change. So So we'll keep that VORTAC in mind. So as we're going through this, so these are in a little bit different format.
Oh, that second kind, you said it was D. The second one was as in Foxtrot Delta Charlie.
D is in Delta. And then FDC, Foxtrot Delta Charlie. So D is our local stuff. That's going to be a lot of our, runway lights and things like that. The FDC is going to be our instrument procedures, all the published stuff, and a lot of times they just change it. So when we're looking at our ILS or localizer to runway 7, which runway 7 is actually closed right now. So kind of different anyway. But this basically just changes some of the minimums to it. So something that's published on the chart, and then this just changes it. And this does the same thing for our RNAV RMP to runway 25. So this is kind of more what I pulled this for. So the DVV VORTAC is out of service. So part of the reason why that one was important is because it looks like they're already showing us that it's in a missed approach procedure. So if we had panicked and seen that DVV VORTAC out of service, and we had gone through to see all of our what our landing minimums were, let's see. We would have found that one of our missed approaches is based off of that DVV VORTAC. So I think it was 3-5 right. So we're going to grab the approach plate for 3-5 right. Hopefully this doesn't take my computer a year and a day to download. Oh, it's actually not based off of what I thought it was going to be based off of. They made a liar out of me. Okay, so the missed approach is if you come down and you hit the missed approach point and you don't have your weather minimums, it's not good enough to land and you have to go missed, and you'll basically follow this missed approach procedure. So climb to 58,000, then climbing right, turn to 10,000, heading on 048 degrees, and on GLL VORTAC radial 136 to CDOC GLL 16 DME and hold. So part of the reason that that's important to read is I actually figured since they changed the missed approach that this GLL was actually going to be the DVV. We're just going to pretend, or we'll see if we can find a different one in a minute. But that's what you're supposed to do if you hit that missed approach point and you can't land, and so you have to go missed. You still have to be able to find all those places. And so a lot of times that's why it's important to see those vortex that are out of service and why they affect us. So let's see, maybe the 2.6 has it.
Now, Davis, what's DVV?
DVV is just the identifier for that vortex. I can't actually remember what they call that vortex. It has a name. I think it's like the Black Forest.
No, I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't missing something else. But
Oh, okay. It's the MileHigh vortex. So that's what they call it. But DVV, yeah, it's just a vortex. That's just its identifier. So if you were talking to ATC, if you were a pilot and you were talking to ATC, and you were like, I need to go deviate off my course for some reason, and they said, okay, head direct, like the DVV vortex. Basically, you're just dialing in that frequency for that vortex, and you're heading straight to it. So that's just the identifier.
okay, thanks.
Yep. Solid question. Yes, here we go. Okay. So this is a perfect one. We're using our MileHigh VOR here. This approach is basically, the missed approach is predicated around the DVV vortex. So if we come down to our missed approach point and then we have to use the missed approach and we have to fly towards, so climb to 59,000, climbing right turn to 9,000 on heading 070, and on DVV vortex radial 019 to CDUC 25 DME and hold. So basically we're trying to find this point here. This is kind of just a little box that shows you the missed approach. So if we're climbing up and we're trying to find CDUC and we're predicating this thing around the DVV vortex, then we wouldn't be able to find it if we can't use it. So if it's out of service, there wouldn't be any way to find it other than just ignore this, because there actually is another way to find it, but just pretend that the only way to find it is off of this MileHigh VOR. So there's no way to find it, so we have to change that approach procedure. So to change a published approach procedure, we have to issue one of those FDC NOTAMs. So that was on the ILS for 2.6, right here. So they're changing this missed approach now. Now it's missed approach, climb to 59,000, then right turn to 9,000, direct GLL, vortex, DME, and hold. So now you're supposed to go to the GLL, vortex, and hold. Or VOR, DME, and hold. Not a vortex. But you guys see how that changes that?
Yeah.
There are times where they actually won't change it, and they just take it out of service. They just say, yeah, we're done. You guys can't use this approach. Like it'll say, there's not one on here, but it'll just say procedure NA, and it'll completely take out the whole approach for us, and it's really annoying. So they won't change that. Oops. All right, let's look at another airport here. Somebody throw out one. How about we just look at St. George? Not everybody all at once, guys. Calm down. All right.
Put us on the spot with that one.
I mean, I'm ready. So.
Hawaii. Do a airport in Hawaii or something.
Oh gosh. Okay, hold on. Let's go to
KOA is Kona.
KOA. We'll
I
do
don't know
KOA
which.
in a minute. So if we go to a small airport like St. George, you guys see there's really not many NOTAMs, and when we look at this, so let's see who's first on the list here. Brandon, you're at the top of the list here. Why don't you kind of look at this one and tell me kind of what this means here. So start over here and tell me 08, 008.
So it's August. It's the 8th NOTAM of this month.
Yep.
Runway 1. Oh, am I supposed to keep going?
Yeah, keep on going.
Okay. Runway 1, and I don't know what the ID
Identifier.
Okay. What is LGT?
Light. And then this basically just unserviceable. We can't use it. So runway and identifier light. Do you think that really affects us?
No.
No, it doesn't really. And then this is actually long-handed out. Maybe I'll see if I can find the one that's not as good.
It's gibberish.
The what?
Oh, that was just my brother in the background. Sorry.
Oh, no worries. So this is actually the one I use at work here. This is the Federal Aviation Administration. So this is like real-time FAA. The other one is also real-time FAA, but they give you all the longhand. They make it a lot easier for you. We'll go to our pilot web here. So yeah, runway and identifier light out of service. And then take this away here.
That's what I forgot, honestly.
That's what?
I forgot.
Okay, no worries. So we'll first start with this 18. This is our year. So we're in 2018. And then we kind of break this up. We look at the next two digits.
August.
Yep, August.
And then 22nd.
22nd.
1430 Zulu.
Yep, so that's when this starts. That's when this light is like broken. And this is actually not even Yeah, so that's when this light broke, and then our estimated return.
It's the same day, 2 hours later.
Yeah. So they're probably just doing some work on it or something. But yeah, this doesn't really matter to us. Let's see, Brian, you've got a weird symbol next to your name. Can you speak?
Yeah, that was just mute.
Oh, okay. So look
Just
at
showing that I
this.
was muted.
Why don't you tell us what this next one means? This right here, this highlighted one.
All right. So SGU is the airport.
Yep.
So 0415, would that be the 15th NOTAM of April?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So
And so, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, keep on going. Just don't even worry about this.
Okay.
You start here.
So SGU's the airport. Not sure what TWY is.
So
Is
that'll be
that
your
taxiway?
Yeah. You'll do a
Okay.
lot of looking up stuff when we first start these, and then you'll start to kind of memorize everything. But it's not like super important. Like if you don't know what, taxiway is or
So
whatever, you can always look those up and see like what the identifiers are. That's why I emailed you guys that thing when we first started.
So that would be taxiway A between taxiway A2 and taxiway A4, irregular, and don't know what SFC is.
Surface.
But then surface. Okay, so something's on the ground there. And that is between 2018 0426, so April 26th at 0425 Zulu to 2359. So basically that's in effect from April 2018 to September 2019.
Yep.
September 30th at
when
2359.
Yeah. When you look at one that's this far out, that's really just an estimate. Don't expect that on October 1st that this is going to be fixed. It's probably not. This whole thing, there was a lot of runway construction, and they fixed a kind of a little like dip in the runway, and so that's what all that's from. They'll probably have to tear out the entire runway and do it all over again if they want to fix that. But
They're closing it next year.
Oh, are they planning on that?
They're like from like June till November, something like that.
Oh man, that sounds like it's going to be a huge hassle for all the SkyWest employees are going to be pretty chapped about that, I'm sure.
Well, they can't fight the FAA on this one, I don't think.
No, and honestly, they need to get it fixed. So
does that mean you can't fly out for that long?
Yeah, I mean, if the runway's like just gone, then there's nothing. You can't.
True.
I don't think the taxiway might be long, like wide enough for some general aviation planes, but I doubt they'll open it up and let commercials come in. So we were talking about these numbers here. This is also a really good number for us to be able to talk to pilots with and tell them, like, because sometimes they'll call and ask, like, hey, you said something in the remarks about, I'm trying to think of what now it would be, but you did something planned around this, or, oh, okay, so like a VOR is out, and I say, like, changed route from normal route to not plan the DVV VOR. And they called and they were like, why can't we use the DVV VOR? I'm like, well, it's out of service. If you look at, NOTAM, I can't remember what it is. It's like 080 something. You can check that out. And so then they can quickly come here and be like, okay, because these will go down in order through these. So they'll be able to look at the local NOTAMs and be able to know, oh, okay, 04015 right there. So if there's a big list of NOTAMs, it's a whole lot easier to tell them a number instead of just them like scanning through those. Or if you're talking to your supervisor and you're like, hey, I have no clue what FDC NOTAM 8/9020 means. Can you go take a look at that and tell me what that means? And then they can quickly go and look at it and kind of help you decipher. Every now and then a NOTAM will get put in by just like a local station. They'll call it in and it'll get put in there, and it just doesn't hardly make any sense. Like there was one time we had a NOTAM in Dallas that said the approach was not usable for, it was like Class C landing minimums and higher, is what it said. And so everyone was kind of talking, and we were like, so Class C, does that mean like higher? Or no, it said Class C and lower. So you guys talked about approach charts or approach plates and everything like that last week, right?
Yeah, we did.
Okay. So you guys remember what the difference is between Class A, Class B, C, and D approach minimums are? Not the specifics, just kind of tell me a general.
The aircraft type.
So it's gonna be an aircraft type, but it's the speed they're coming in at. So on one hand, we were looking at, okay, so if it says Class C and lower, on the approach plates, the D is typically, Class D is lower than Class C, but then all the speeds are lower in Class B and A. And so we were trying to figure out, so we're like, which one does it take out? And we asked the supervisor, and the supervisor was like, that's really unclear, and called the tower. And the tower guy was like, he's like, when I put that in, he's like, I thought it made perfectly good sense to me, but now that I'm reading it again, he's like, I totally see what you're saying, and they revised the NOTAM. But anyway, that's a long rambled on speech about how it's easy to use these. It's a P. There we go. All right, so we're going to Hawaii. Isn't it P for Hawaiian airports? Does anyone know that? Yeah, I guess, I don't know. Maybe Kona just doesn't have any NOTAMs right now. So we can assume just everything's working and totally cool. But for those of you who wanted to go to Hawaii, we'll read some NOTAMs here. Who was it that wanted to go to Hawaii?
I said it just
Me.
for an airport, just for something,
Okay. Why don't
like
you
no
go ahead
particular
and,
reason.
Casey, why don't you tell us about 08143 right there. Just kind of read through that and tell us what it is.
So it's August, and it's the 143rd NOTAM, and then
The
the
143rd NOTAM in August.
in August.
Yeah.
And then the nav. I know what ILS is, but the nav, I'm not sure if that's just general or specific.
Just nav.
Like,
That's just a general. So that's telling you. Remember how we were talking about those letter codes that are telling you what this is about?
mm-hmm.
So this one's about a runway. This one's about a runway.
Oh, okay.
This one's about a runway. This one's about nav. So this is going to be some sort of navigation.
For ILS.
Yep.
Okay. And then runway 8 left, is that a service?
Yeah. So that could be a big one for us. I think they've got like four good runways, but if the wind was not good on one of them or something, then they'd have to come in and do that. But it looks like 8 left is going to be closed anyway, if you look at this one below it. So when you're looking at this NOTAM, go ahead and tell me when this is valid for.
The 22nd of August, 2018, from 17:30 Zulu to the same day, 3 hours later at 20:30 Zulu.
Yeah, so probably what's going on is they're just doing some maintenance. And these are typically, they will only do the maintenance if there's good weather. So this is definitely something that we're worried about as a dispatcher. But a lot of times they only do this maintenance, and you can tell it's maintenance because it's only like 3 hours long, and they're going to shut down the whole runway for it. I actually had this happen when I was getting observed by a third-party safety company. So our director came by and he was like, "Hey," he's like, "can I have him sit with you and just observe?" He's like, "They're going to ask some questions and blah, blah, blah." And I was like, yeah, that sounds cool. As soon as they sat down, I had a flight from, I think, LA to Monterey, California. And on their way there, the weather just tanked. And we ended up with, like, I think there was a mile of visibility and 200-foot ceilings. Or no, mile of visibility and like 400-foot ceilings. And the weather minimums there are, I think, half a mile and 300-foot ceilings. And so it's just barely legal, but only for the ILS approach. But they had this same NOTAM in there and it started like 5 minutes after I was supposed to get there. And so I ended up just having to turn around and tell these guys, like, okay, I'm about to get busy, and I had to make a bunch of phone calls and call the tower and find out, okay, are you actually going to take this out of service? And, or is it going to be usable? And the whole time I'm like ACARsing with the crew and keeping them updated. And I kind of end up just almost ignoring the people behind me. And I felt bad because they were doing a large audit to evaluate our safety. But guess what I did was safe. But anyway, they actually took the NOTAM out for me and kept the ILS in service until later that day. And once the weather cleared up, they did the maintenance. So that was kind of cool. So Katie, was it you that also said Hawaii, or was that Tara?
I'm always down for Hawaii.
All right, Tara, why don't you tell us what 08066 is talking about?
Okay. Since I came in late, I don't know what the 1HNL means.
So HNL is just Honolulu.
Oh, okay. Okay. Honolulu runway, is it 26R, right?
Yep.
Or 25?
So 26, right?
Okay. Is closed to
Landing.
landing. I was going to say lodging. I'm like, that doesn't fit. Okay. And I don't know how they do the years on this or the numbers. Is it the
So let's
year?
break it down to two numbers.
So 18 would be the year, right?
Yep.
And then 0808. So this was on the 8th. And it was what?
On the 8th of August.
Mm-hmm. At Zulu, I don't know how they say that, 0034.
Yeah, just 0034 Zulu. It sounds awkward.
Okay.
It's just, that's totally fine though.
Okay. And that's closed until, sorry, 180921, and then 0200 Zulu.
Yep.
I fuddled my way through that, but I think I got it.
No, that's good. I just want to before I send you guys off to do an exercise with everything, I wanna go through and have everyone read one.
What's a pappy again?
That's the lights to see your glide slope.
Yeah, I'll pull one
Okay.
up for you.
Because I see it like 3 lines up.
What does the TWY stand for?
Taxiway.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So precision approach path indicator.
Ah, okay.
I'm hoping the FAA gives us a solid picture here.
Fingers crossed.
They kind of do. So you see we've got the runway here. We're flying our plane down.
Mhm.
And if our plane is on the glide slope, so you remember the glide slope is that horizontal, not horizontal, it's our vertical,
Descent path?
yeah, basically. Yeah, it's the path we're supposed to fly to be able to ascend and land safely on the runway. So if we're too high or too low, this will indicate different colors. So what we want here is too white and too red. Too white, too red means that we're on the correct path. And I think if we're too high, it's I think it's 1 red.
It's white
If it's too high, then it's white. If it's too low, then it's red. And you need
Yeah.
two
Okay.
white and two red to make perfect
Yeah.
glide slope.
So too low. If it's too low, yeah, red. Yeah, just like you said.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And those are cool. I thought when I was learning all this stuff, I wasn't really too familiar with like I'd never sat in a cockpit before. I'd never really flown general aviation, and so I thought the way that I was taught that they just always shot the ILS, just always did. Most of the time they don't. They fly some sort of approach, and then all of a sudden in the approach, they just shoot the visual. They just kind of stop, and they just do the whole thing visual.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's for something that seems like it would be very, you would want it to be super precise and everything. Most of the pilots are really good, and they just shoot the visual and they use the PAPI to come down, and that's it. As long as the weather's good. If the weather's not good, then that's when they do everything. But kind of interesting.
Yeah, it all is, actually.
Let's see. Throw out some airports of places you'd want to go to vacation in the contiguous United States.
Go to Tampa.
Tampa. Give me another one.
Miami?
Miami.
And
Myrtle Beach.
where'd you say? Oregon?
Yeah, I want to go out there.
Yeah.
That's awesome snowboarding.
All right, let's go to North Bend. That place is beautiful. We fly there. And maybe Eugene. All right, Katie, why don't you tell us about 08141 in Tampa here?
Okay. So it's the 149th of August, and it's Tampa Nav ILS runway first left locator out of
Localizer.
service. Localizer out of service.
Yeah, like localizer and glide path out of service.
Okay.
And then,
And it's
yeah, tell us that.
2018 August 21st, 1300 Zulu till same day 1600 Zulu.
Perfect. Nice. So our localizer glide path, you guys remember the parts of our ILS? This is basically just they're taking the ILS out. So if you take out the localizer and the glide path, I mean, that's the big thing that makes the ILS so precise is that you have vertical and horizontal guidance. If you take them both out, we basically don't have an ILS. So it's just kind of a different way of putting in ILS out of service. Wes, why don't you tell us about this next one, 08147.
So is that Tampa and I don't know what SVC is.
Just I think it's service.
Serviced.
Yeah, the TAR. It's like a terminal area radar or something.
Okay, so the Tampa service terminal area radar is out of service from 2018 to
Yeah, terminal area surveillance radar.
surveillance radar. Yeah.
There we go. Sorry. Here you go. Back.
Terminal area surveillance radar is out of service 2018 August 23rd at 0500 Zulu to 2018 August 23rd at 0900 Zulu.
Cool. Nice. Do you think that really affects us much?
It's only for and no, I don't think so.
No, never something I've worried about. Hopefully, I'm not.
I've never heard of that.
Dead wrong there. They go out all the time. But no, I don't think I've ever worried about that one. Do you guys think we're worried about anything on the apron?
No, because there's like a line crew usually calling the radio.
Yeah. Yeah, you may actually know more about the apron than I do. Most of the time when I see apron, I just skim right on over.
Yeah, they should. I don't know how commercial works, but for private, if the pilots need anything when they land or they don't know where to go, they just call me on the radio and I tell them like, all right, I'll be right outside, and I just marshal them into where I want them and get whatever equipment they need or want, and it's super easy.
Yeah, that's pretty much. All right. All right, Paul, we're going down to Miami. Why don't you tell us about 08297?
All right, it's the 297th NOTAM in August. GTK nav aboard VOR out of service.
When's
It's
it?
from
Yeah.
it's from August 21st, 2018 at 1300 Zulu to August 21st, 2018 at 2000 Zulu.
Yeah, you could just say 20 Zulu as well.
20 Zulu.
Yeah. Nice.
Wait, I have a question.
Okay.
How it's the 8th month, it's August, and 297, is that just to Miami, or is that 200? Do they just,
Well,
how
that
do those numbers work, or is that just
just
NOTAMs, period?
Miami is
Just Miami.
done 300 NOTAMs, over 300 NOTAMs this month.
Is that typical?
Maybe for Miami. St. George probably gets maybe like 5 a month.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean the big thing about Miami is that they're gonna have like Miami, bigger airports. There's gonna be stuff going on all the time. Like O'Hare always has a ton of NOTAMs, but they've also got like 7 runways. 5 runways. Yeah. So there's tons of stuff going on all of them.
Okay.
Preston, why don't you tell us about 07355?
So that's the 355th one of 7, so July. It's saying there's the Nav ILS runway 26R DME not. What is MNT?
Monitored.
Not monitored. Okay. So not monitored. That happens between July 26, 2018, 11:16 Zulu time, till August 30th, 2018, 20 Zulu time.
Yeah. And
Or is
that's
that
no, that's an estimated return to service. Don't
Oh,
get
okay.
tripped up. Yeah, that's actually, so there were 2 reasons I picked this one. Not monitored basically means it's still in service. They're just not monitoring to make sure that it's in service, but it's still in service. And then everyone always thinks that means Eastern Standard Time. I fell victim of this when I first started dispatching as well. But it basically just is an estimated return to service.
Because obviously we don't use anything but Zulu, right?
Yeah, aviation's always in Zulu.
Okay.
Nice job.
I disagree, but is that true for dispatch? Always?
Yeah, it's true for dispatch.
Okay.
Well, every now and then somebody will call you like times in and they're local, but if they're local, they will specify.
Okay.
And the pilots actually talk more in local than the dispatchers do. Dispatchers are pretty much always worried about Zulu.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because I hardly hear Zulu except looking at the flight plans.
Oh, well, yeah. That's pretty much all we're worried about. Sometimes we'll call, so like, you remember we kind of mentioned ground delay programs when we were talking about ATC?
Yeah.
That's when we always kind of realize that the pilots a lot of times stay on local and never really even think about Zulu, but we get these times in Zulu, and then the pilots always try and convert them, or like we'll be talking on the phone with them. It's like, hey, you just got a wheels up time, and it's 18:35 Zulu, and they're like, so what's that in local? They were like, wait, which time zone am I in? And I'm like, I have no idea, That's 2 hours from now, though. And they're like, oh, okay, all right, yeah, yeah, I can do that. But so that's kind of funny. So yeah, a lot of times pilots stay on local time, but we're as dispatchers when we're looking at releases and everything, you pretty much always stay on Zulu because that's where your weather's at. That's where your times are going to be. That's where we're going to be dealing with these times and the NOTAMs. So all sorts of stuff like that. So yeah, it's I guess it's more as a dispatcher thing.
Okay, no thanks.
Uh-huh. All right, Trevin, why don't you go with this one? I'm kidding. You don't have to do that. We're going to go more into FDCs after we take a break. Unless you want to. Okay, so let's check out North Bend. Trevin, you want to take this one away? 08028.
I can't hear you, Trevin.
Yeah, I'm not sure we can hear you. Maybe not.
He said, okay.
Oh, his mic's not working. It's not a huge deal. We're all just going to assume that you said that that's the 28th NOTAM of August. Eugene, runway 16 right, 34 left, closed daily from 14 to 23:30.
Hello?
Oh, you got it now?
Oh yeah, sorry about that.
Oh, no worries.
All right. Sorry, did you want me to do that one even though you kind of just did that?
Yeah, go ahead and do it. And we're kind of going to go over this one because this is kind of a cool one.
All right. Yeah, so the 28th of August, or 28th NOTAM of August, in Eugene, the runway 26 right and 34 left. Is that close? Is that daily?
Yeah.
Okay. That's so from 1400 to 2330 Zulu. That's from August 22nd on 2018 to August 23rd, 2018, with those given times of 1400 to 2330.
Yeah. So basically, this is not closed all day every day. It's only closed from 14 to 23:30, but each day. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Nice job. And Tyler.
Which one you got for me?
Let's go with North Bend.
All right.
This is 0417.
Okay. So 17th NOTAM released in April at OTH, runway 22, runway ending, indicator lights out of service from April 11th, 2018, 1400 to December 31st, 2018 to from 2359.
Yeah.
So the end of the year.
Yeah. This one, and that's probably one of those ones that's also just an estimate. This thing probably broke, and they've put in for service. And North Bend is actually on my list of places that I really want to go. So it's like super pretty.
All of Oregon is.
Yeah, it really is. I did some fly fishing up there at one point, and it was beautiful. But yeah, as you can see, Northmond is not really all that close to probably many people that know how to fix runway and identifier lights. So that's probably why that's just kind of like a indefinite thing. But it's a pretty cool place. And from what I've heard from everyone that's flown over it or gone to, it's just amazingly beautiful. All right, I think that was everyone. Did I skip anybody?
I don't think so.
All right. How about we take a 30-minute break? You guys grab some food. We'll come back at 9:15.
Sounds like a plan.
All right, sounds good.
Do you mean 7:15?
7:15.
Yeah, sorry, I'm on the East Coast tonight again. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, 7:15. Don't come back at 9:15. 7:15. 30 minutes.
All right.
Thank you.
See
I
y'all.
appreciate that.
Thank you.
Did everyone get the email I sent?
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Yes.
And after you guys get done with that, then we'll kind of look more at FDC NOTAMs and go a little bit more in depth in those. I'll have you guys read some of those. All right, how's everybody doing so far?
Good.
Are you guys like far from being done, or?
I'm about done with the first page.
Okay.
There are a couple things on there that aren't on that website that you emailed to us.
Okay. Well, just don't worry about those. Just if it's not on there, then just move on.
All right. What's TODA?
Oh gosh, I think it's in reference to the runway.
According to Google, it's takeoff distance available.
Yeah, that's correct.
Sweet.
All right, I'll probably just have everybody stop wherever they are at, and we'll just kind of move on for the night. You can either just send me what you have, or if you've got a real hankering to finish that, you can, and then just send it to me later. I'll probably look over them tomorrow, and if there's anything wrong, I'll send you an email back. If that works for everyone.
Yeah, it sounds good.
Cool. So yeah, it doesn't matter. You can either send me what you've got, or you can finish it later. That I'm not gonna like. If you don't finish it, I'm not gonna be like mad or anything. I know a lot of those. Some of those can even get kind of repetitive. Basically, I just wanted to go ahead and kind of read over some FDC NOTAMs real quick. Before we moved on, and there's actually still a little bit more ATC stuff we were going to go over tonight. Okay, so we'll start back in Tampa. I bet they've got a fair amount of good ones. So, as I remember, D Delta, that's going to be your local NOTAMs. Those are up there. These FDC NOTAMs are going to be instrument procedures, so things that are already published. So our missed approaches, our arrivals, our departures, things like that. And my computer's freezing here. Oh, there we go. Okay. So when we're looking at these, a lot of them don't really affect much for us. Some of them are really big for us. Some of them, it just doesn't really matter that much to us. So so this is kind of one we would take a look at here. So this 82927, the Tampa 7 departure, takeoff from runway 19 left, 19 right, NA, except for aircraft equipped with suitable RNAV system with GPS. The MileHigh Vor is out of service. So unless we have a plane with, well, at SkyWest we consider suitable RNAV to have dual FMS planes. Then we would not be able to use this departure. So we'd have to pick a different departure. Here's another one we've got here. So the Tampa, the ILS or localizer runway 19 left. They're amending this. So now we're going to have our missed approach climb to 3000 on the SRQ VOR DME radial 7 to career intersection SRQ 16.76 DME and hold. So they're basically just changing the point that we're going to because this MileHigh Vor is out of service. The MileHigh Vor is actually, it's changing a fair amount of missed approach procedures, so that must have been something that they used in most of their missed approaches. Okay, so here's another one. You guys remember talking about our MDA and the approach plates? Anybody?
I don't remember what MDA stands for, but I remember talking about.
Yeah, it's just the minimum descent altitude, just where you, just on the approach plate. This is just going to make it higher. So, dual VOR receivers or DME required, circling CATs A and B. So this is on this runway only. So, or this chart only, the localizer for runway 1 right. And this is the circling minimums. It basically just changes those to 660 and the hat to 635. And it's just because of a crane. So that is actually one of the only times that a crane affects us. So a lot of times up in the local NOTAMs, I'm actually not even seeing. Yeah, I'm not even seeing where the crane was, but this, honestly, a lot of times we don't even care about this because we're probably not even shooting the localizer on one right. There's like 4 other approaches we could plan for. And even then, the weather is probably good if the weather's bad, then we may have to start looking at this. But there's other approaches we could plan for. It's the small airports that only have like one runway are the ones that we have to start really looking out for. But if it's 10 and clear today in Tampa, then we really don't care that much. Let's see. Detroit always has a lot of FDC NOTAMs. It seems like almost every VOR and VORTAC up in that area is out of service. Oh, okay. So this is actually an interesting one right here, this 8-6789. So all of these arrivals into Detroit. So Detroit's in the midst of changing a lot of its arrivals. And so they go through and start listing all these arrivals. And then do not file to be assigned by ATC. So that would mean if you were building your route, you cannot file one of those. Those would only be assigned by ATC. So you have to file a different one. Half those are the same as the old ones though, so it's not really a big difference. Yeah, so here we go. The Earth 6 departure. This one's been out forever. Departure procedure NA except for aircraft equipped with suitable RNAV system with GPS. The YQG VOR DME is out of service. So it just means unless we had that suitable RNAV, we wouldn't be able to file this one. A lot of times when we're looking at these FDCs, what it's going to change is maybe like they're going to tell us that we can't file a certain arrival or certain departure. They're going to say that we have to add 100 feet to our minimums for, something here and there. It's a lot of like pretty nitty-gritty stuff, and sometimes they'll take out a certain point in a departure procedure. I know there was one in LA that was a huge pain for us at SkyWest because I can't remember if it was like a VOR out of service or what it was, but we weren't allowed to file a certain point in this departure procedure. And so we always had to manually take it out, and it was just a huge pain for us. But so when we talk about these NOTAMs and we talk about how they're going to affect what we're doing, let me see if I can find. Actually, it'd probably be easier to find it on these, on our approaches. So if we're going into Denver and let's say we're planning over here, we're going to plan this ILS 16 left. And let's say that we've got really thick fog. We're expecting bad weather conditions, and so we're probably going to have to go down to minimums on approach. And we're looking through our NOTAMs, and let's say we saw something about an inoperative Mauser. So you guys remember what the Mauser was? That was one of our approach lights. So if we saw that, we'd come into our approach plate here. So if we're planning 16 left, and so when we come up here to this box here, we could see that for an inoperative Mauser, increase the localizer CAT C and D visibility to RVR of 4500. So then if we were looking down here, so our C and our D for this localizer approach, now clearly we've got the ILS, so the glide slope would have to be out too. But if we're looking at just having to do this ILS, instead of being 2400 RVR, it would be 4500 RVR. So we'd need a whole lot more if that Mauser was out for our legal minimums. Let's see if I can remember one that it affects us big time. Here we go. So this BTV, this is Burlington, Vermont. And as you're going down, you can see, so 33, 19, 15, there's a ton of stuff out. So let's go and we'll see what their big runways are. And we want to see how that affects us. Okay, so when we're looking at these, we've got 15 and 33 here, and then we've got 1 and 19. So 15 and 33, as we can see, are a little over 8,000 feet long. That's a pretty long runway. That's definitely something that the CRJ 700 for this class would be able to land on. But this 4,000 foot runway here, this 1 and 19, that's probably not something we'd be able to get any good landing numbers on. So for this purpose, we're just going to assume 1 and 19 that we can't even use, because those are probably no good for us. We can't get any legal landing or any landing data for those just because it's too short. We wouldn't be able to stop. It'd be mostly like a general aviation runways. So what we're worried about here is probably going to be 15 and 33. So let me pull up. We're going to be, our lowest landing minimums are probably going to be this ILS or localizer to 15 or 33. So if we go and look at the NOTAMs, 33 our approach light system is out of service, so that's probably going to increase our minimums. 15, our approach light system is out of service, so that's going to increase our minimums. This outer marker, it probably won't affect us. RVR out of service, so we have to use the METAR for visibility. 15, the localizer glide path out of service, so we can't even use that approach. So now 15 is completely out. So now we're looking at our lowest minimums are probably going to be 33 with our approach light system out. we'll continue down to look at our NOTAMs. So 15 we've already decided is out. So it looks like 33 with the approach light system out is probably going to be our best minimums. So when we go and look at this, actually the approach light system doesn't really change that much. Okay. Well, if there was something up here that increased our minimums, it basically would make our legal landing minimums go from what we would imagine as being, so we're a C, as being, let's see, 1 1/4 or 1/2, maybe 1/4 there, and for 6,000 RVR to it could end up being way higher, and then we end up needing much higher minimums. Whereas if we didn't look at these, we went and looked at 15, well, those are pretty high too, 2.5. Or sorry, no, 1/2 and 3/4 of a mile and 400. So it our legal landing minimums just from these NOTAMs went up by almost double. Oh, sorry, I was still looking in the wrong column. 200.5. There we go. I'm used to looking at different charts where the format is a little different. But yeah, so you guys can see how NOTAMs can affect how we would have to plan on this by a lot. All right. Let's go. We've got about 1 hour and 15 left. Does anybody have any questions about any of these? Take silence as a no. You guys want to take 5 minutes, come back at 8:20, and then we'll finish up the rest on ATC.
That's good.
Sounds good.
Cool. All right, guys. So we'll pretty much finish up class here with ATC and kind of talk about just some of the different things that they can do. I know we spoke on kind of how they work a little bit the other night, but we're going to go into a little bit more detail about some of the stuff they can do and that sort of thing. So as I talked about, there's centers. Each center has his own code abbreviation. Mexico has centers as well. The big ones we're going to touch on here are traffic flow management, which actually basically covers almost the rest of those. So different sort of traffic flow management, swaps, so severe weather avoidance plans, and then routing. So when you're departing from an airport, the tower's got you, they give you your clearance, and they control the aircraft on the ground and within 5 miles. As soon as it goes from that, you go to TRACON, and they control aircraft in terminal airspace, which is like right around the airport, 5 to 40 miles from the airport, until above the altitude of 10,000. Center controls all the aircraft in that center, and then as you come back down toward the terminal area, go back to TRACON, back to tower. So this is kind of a neat flow. A lot of times where everything starts out in ATC is with this traffic management, or TMU, traffic management, and then they talk to the dispatcher, and they'll actually publish certain routes that we have to file, or they'll manage ground delay programs, or basically they're kind of looking ahead to make sure that we're not going to end up with a lot of flow constrained areas, and then we have to help route around that. And our route goes to the pilot talks to the controller. Sometimes the controller does not talk to anybody, and they just kind of do what they want, but for the most part they are supposed to do what traffic management wants. Well, and the controller and the traffic management actually do talk to each other a fair amount.
So is the traffic manager with the airline or with ATC?
ATC. Sometimes you'll hear traffic management called TMU, and that's just another form of air traffic control. So sometimes they give us these crazy routes, and you line up on the end of the runway, and all of a sudden you get this like crazy reroute from ATC, and you have to follow it. So is the compliance mandatory? In accordance with the FAR 91, 121, and 135, all operators have the right to refusal of specific clearances and may elect an alternative. Alternatives include, but are not limited to, ground delay, diversion, or other airports or request to stay on the filed route. So the pilot can actually say, no, I don't have enough fuel for that. I want to stay on the filed route. Sometimes they just send them back to the gate. Sometimes they'll actually do it. It just all kind of depends. So first and foremost, ATC is worried about aircraft spacing. They don't want metal to touch metal in the air or on the ground. So to do that, sometimes they implement these techniques. One's miles in trail, and the other one is minutes in trail. They're both pretty similar. Basically, what they're doing is they're trying to either increase the amount. Typically, when they do this, they're trying to increase the amount of space in between the aircraft. So, miles in trail describes the number of miles required between aircraft departing an airport over a fix at an altitude through a sector or on a specific route. It's used to apportion traffic into manageable flow as well as provide space for additional traffic merging or departing to enter the flow of traffic. For example, standard separation between aircraft in the en route environment is 5 nautical miles. During a weather event, this separation may increase significantly to allow for deviations. So sometimes in the air, you'll see planes like zigzagging around, and that's basically just to try and slow them down to increase this separation. So maybe Seattle is actually really good about doing this. Instead of implementing a delay program, they'll get up in the air, and to manage, maybe they've got, just say they've got 20 flights that are going to be there between 7 o'clock and 7:30, and they can only handle like 17 flights. So they've got these extra flights that they just can't handle. They will slow down and increase the separation in between these flights so that they come in slower and they can handle them. So it's pretty cool. Did everybody get that?
Yeah.
Okay. Minutes in trail is pretty similar, except it's typically over a non-radar environment. So minutes in trail describes the amount of time needed between successive aircraft. It is normally used when aircraft are operating in a non-radar environment or transitioning to from a non-radar environment. This would be the case with offshore and oceanic route spacing. So if they can't see where everybody's at, they can't really do as much with them. Do you purposely plan an airborne holding? Planned airborne holding may be used for managing traffic when delays per aircraft are expected to be brief. This will help to keep a supply of traffic available to meet the capacity of an airport when the slowdown is temporary. In other terms, airborne holding is in response to a situation and is unplanned. So we don't really plan on that. That's kind of last case for ATC. They typically like to slow everyone down by miles in trail or a delay program first. Okay, what are sequencing programs? Sequencing programs are designed to achieve a specific interval between aircraft. They may be software generated or determined by traffic management personnel. So there's departure sequence program, assigns a departure time to achieve a constant flow of traffic over a common point. Normally this involves departure from multiple airports. So this is a lot of like when I speak at ground delay programs, that's what this is. So they're not allowed to leave until a certain time. En route spacing program assigns a departure time that will facilitate integration into the overhead stream. An arrival sequencing program assigns fixed crossing times to aircraft destined for the same airport. An automated ASP, traffic management advisory, is a time-based tool used to maximize airborne efficiency. So this departure sequence program is probably the biggest one you'll see. They also do this a lot, actually. They use altitudes to separate people. So sometimes you might have filed 340, but all of a sudden you get a message and the pilots are saying, hey, we got stopped at 280 for traffic, but they said we can go up further later. And so that's another way they kind of keep aircraft spaced. In fact, we see this one a lot over O'Hare. It seems like every flight I have that comes from like around the Ohio area up to the Minnesota area gets stopped below the altitude I file almost every time. And then in the New York, they actually do this capping, but we'll talk about the capping later. Right here, actually. So what does capping mean? Capping is a colloquialism for planning to hold an aircraft at altitudes lower than the requested altitude until they are clear of a particular area. It may be in response to weather or other situations that have impacted air traffic controllers' ability to provide service, and it may be applied to the entire route of flight. It is used during constrained situations in the national airspace and enables aircraft to continue to depart while remaining underneath the constrained airspace. So they do this one a lot in New York, and you have to plan a ton of fuel for it. So let's just say that going from LaGuardia to O'Hare burns like 8,000 pounds of fuel. When we have to plan these capping routes, it's like you go from planning 8,000 pounds of fuel to planning like 13 or 14,000 pounds of fuel. The fuel burns are way bigger for these. But it's just because they get so busy there that they can't. You know, there's just constrained airspace up above, so they'll just file them low, and I guess it works pretty well. They do it all the time. How do I know if I'm being capped? You will know when air traffic controller advises you in your clearance to expect a final altitude lower than requested. You also know ahead of time, though, because a lot of times this is a published reroute because it does require so much more fuel. That if they didn't publish it like way ahead of time when the dispatcher was planning it, we'd have, just a ton of people that wouldn't be able to accept, or they'd have to go back and get more fuel. What if I don't have enough fuel? Each pilot in command has the option to refuse a clearance for safety reasons. If you can't comply with the clearance, you are required to advise ATC. At the time, different options may be presented to you, including the option of taking a delay on the ground until the situation in the airspace is resolved. So ground delay program. I know I've thrown this term around a lot. I don't know, maybe others have too. I would rather deal with like so many thunderstorms and have to build a whole bunch of routes and everything than have to deal with like one ground delay program going into San Francisco. A lot of times they give you these long delay times, and you've got to redo the release like 2 or 3 times, and you end up with passengers like sitting out on the tarmac for an hour or so. And some delay programs are really good and it's only like a 15-minute delay. Others take like 2 or 3 hours. It just depends. But yeah, this is you'll probably find that once you start dispatching, these ground delay programs are the biggest thing that you find peeving. Ground delay program is a traffic management procedure where aircraft are delayed at their departure airport in order to manage demand and capacity at their arrival airport. Flights are assigned departure times, which in turn regulates their arrival time at the impacted airport. GDP will normally, ground delay program GDP, will normally be implemented at airports where capacity has been reduced because of weather, such as low ceilings, thunderstorms, or wind, or when demand exceeds capacity for a sustained period. GDPs are implemented to ensure the arrival demand at an airport is kept at a manageable level to preclude extensive holding and to prevent aircraft from having to divert to other airports. They also...
Hey, Davis?
Yeah?
Oh, sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt, but a couple of questions. Just kind of, you mentioned San Francisco with this. Is this because of their fog and their, you know, their nutty weather there that it happens? You know.
So
like,
go ahead.
Well, I guess my part two is, how often do you see it between two busy airports, like say Denver and O'Hare, where you might not have room on the ground to park a lot of planes? You don't have a lot of room in the sky either.
So it wouldn't be a delay program specifically between two airports, but if like O'Hare was in a GDP and your plane was departing Denver and going to O'Hare, then you just get held on the ground. And yeah, you end up where in situations sometimes where there's not gate space and you like they might try and board up your plane and then just push them off the gate so that they can bring another plane in there. And it can be a real battle sometimes, because then you've got to plan for extra fuel for a longer taxi out, and you've got to plan for, you know, sometimes these things end up where they're trying to bring them in as fast as they can, and if they do end up over demand, then they end up going into maybe a ground stop, or maybe there's some holding. And so it's kind of hard, but yeah, there's no well, I'm coming from a hub, and so let me go first. Hold on one second here.
Yeah, I guess I was just not so much coming from a hub, let me go first, but just, does it happen that, you know, you're getting, because of delays at one airport, they're holding you in a GDP, and now all of a sudden it's backing up planes on the ground because of the delays at other airports?
Yeah, you end up with them backed up. I mean, that happens all the time. All right, sorry, I was looking at something there. Yeah, no, you end up with them backed up all the time, and that's like, you know, if you've ever flown into like a really busy airport, and you land, and then all of a sudden you're just sitting there, and you're like, man, they knew we were coming. Why don't they have a gate for us? Like, we've been waiting for 30 minutes. You know, you'd think they would know we were coming. They would have a gate ready for us. Things happen all the time where you get delayed coming out, and you end up with no gate space. And yeah, they can screw up a whole lot of stuff. But I guess you'd rather that than end up diverting a bunch of planes. But yeah, I like your thought process. I mean, it does affect a lot of other stuff. But
It's a major pain with legalities too.
For what did you say?
It's a major pain with the pilot legalities also, if there's a flow program in any airport, because then a lot of times it makes them not legal to go in that sense with their.
And that's a huge thing for us too. And every now and then a pilot will get a better flow time because they are about to time out or something. But it's actually, the flow programs are probably an even bigger pain for our crew support than they are for our dispatchers. So yeah, But then, yeah, also going back to what you were saying about San Fran, there's fog, but part of their approach is over a bridge, and for some reason, over that bridge likes to accumulate clouds. And if that particular spot accumulates clouds, they lose the visuals. And like I was saying earlier, most of the time, it's just much easier for pilots to land visuals than it is to actually fly an instrument procedure all the way in. So if you lose visuals, a lot of times you can't take as many planes as usual. So when these clouds like form, even though they're not even over the airport, they're over the approach, you end up losing visuals, and they end up going to a GDP all the time. And the METAR sometimes is like, there might be, I mean, I've seen the GDPs happen when it's like 10 and clear. Like the METAR in San Francisco says there's no clouds, but if you go and look on the webcam by the approach, there's clouds, and that's why. So San Fran's a bit of a pickle. It can be tough. So how does the GDP work? The FAA uses software called Flight Schedule Monitor that compiles scheduled flight information and flight plans from the center to calculate and then display the known demand for arrivals and departures at that airport. So basically everything's just put into a computer software, and they've got these time slots, and they figure out how they need to have them arrive. So this tower en route over here, tower en route is a situation where the aircraft never reaches the en route stratum, but stays in the lower terminal altitudes, being handed off from one terminal facility to another versus center to center. This sometimes reduces delays, especially if the higher en route stratum is congested. So basically this is like that. Sorry, I kind of missed this after the tunneling thing, or capping and tunneling. But the big thing with this is, like, instead of getting up high where they would be talking to center, they're just going to be talking from one terminal facility to another, so Tracon or tower, and they're just getting passed off like that. So that means they're real low, and they're like real close to all the airports. So ground delay programs, this is before one, and then this is basically after one. LaGuardia's airport it's like right there off the ocean. Sometimes they get a lot of high winds, and they can't handle the amount of aircraft that are coming in. They're almost always at capacity for aircraft coming in anyway. And so sometimes when they end up with really bad crosswinds, it can get really congested in there and cause a lot of holding. LaGuardia is notorious for holding planes anyway. It's just there's so many planes going in and out of the New York airports that it's a mess up there sometimes. And it's not anything they're doing wrong. Like, don't let me sound like I'm angry at LaGuardia or anything. It's just there's such a demand up there that if anything goes wrong, we end up in a ground delay program. So basically, they try and take these overages and they try and fit them into where they have other time slots available, and that's how they delay everyone out. So all aircraft filed to a GDP airport that are known to the software are assigned an expected clearance time, an edict. So that's their like wheels up time. and receive a delay from 0 minutes to possibly several hours. And I've actually seen them delayed like into the next day, where they'll end up just getting canceled because the delay time is so long. Aircraft that are not in the original list of flights when the program is implemented will also receive a delay. Their delay will be equal to the average delay assigned and to all other flights arriving in the 15-minute time interval in which their flight is requested to arrive. So it's not like all of a sudden you could just come up with a flight and they would get in. They're still going to get assigned a delay. So there's expected departure clearance time, the edict. That's basically that's what time the ATC wants them to leave. That's like take off. Delay assignment, the delay that is assigned to an aircraft during a GDP. The program rate. So this is basically just how many planes can get in each hour. Airport acceptance rate, the number of aircraft in an airport can accept in 1 hour time frame. The R is determined by aviation system. It's basically the sorry, lost my train of thought there. The AAR is determined by the aviation system airport preference metrics, which takes into consideration the runways in use, weather conditions, and navigational aid limitations. So how can I change my edict? Pilots will call all the time and ask to see if they can get a better one. And I don't know if they think they're being sneaky or not, but we never hardly do. Aircraft must depart within plus or 5 minutes of their edict to be in compliance with the GDP. If you do not think you can make your assigned time, or if you need to request an earlier or later time, then contact clearance delivery or tower at the departure airport. GDPs. There are two types: delay assignment and general aviation program. A tier-based program includes centers that touch the center in which the GDP is located. These programs are referred to as first tier. So anything touching any center that is touching San Francisco Center is considered a first tier center. We'll go back and look at that in a second. And then any tier touching those is, second tier. So they assign it based on centers. A distance-based program is based on a specific mileage for the GDP. Okay, so if we're looking at, it's actually Oakland Center, but if San Francisco issues a first tier GDP, basically what that means is this first tier is Seattle, Salt Lake, and LA. So it's all the centers that touch Oakland Center. And then Oakland will be a part of it too. If it was a second tier program, then we're looking at all the centers that touch those centers. So that would include Albuquerque, Denver, Minnie, and whatever these Canada centers are. And then third tier would be all the ones touching those. And so on and so on. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
Okay, because that will get referenced a lot in your dispatch careers.
Good to know. Is ATC a harder job than dispatch?
It's probably more stressful. I think a lot of it is more like time sensitive, I guess. I think it's a whole lot more stressful as far as like what it takes to be good at each. I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I know we have dispatchers that used to be ATC or that failed out of the academy. But I think a lot of the academy is just like, or a lot of what failing out of the academy seems to be is like, I don't know. There's some people that have not made it through that I would have definitely thought would have made it through, and I would say it's a lot different, but I don't know if it's harder or not. I guess you'd have to ask somebody that's done both.
I thought they like offered you to take the test or something to do that after you become a dispatcher, but I could be wrong.
No. I mean, you could at any time. When they open applications, you don't have to have any sort of license or anything to be able to apply to ATC. The way you apply to ATC is kind of weird, actually. I don't like it. We could probably talk about that for hours, though. I've never done it, but I've heard from people that the application process is like, that doesn't seem to matter if you had a degree in pre-ATC or not. Like, they take 50% of their applicants from like off the street and like 50% that went to school and got their, I think it's an associate's to it's like pre-ATC. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe if any of you guys have done it, you could say, but I don't know.
I know that there was actually a lawsuit filed by people who had been air traffic controllers in the military and had applied for the academy to get their civilian, and they were basically turned down flat. And so they sued, claiming that it was all a political process, not a selective process.
Yeah, I've heard.
But yeah, that lawsuit is still ongoing, so take it for what it's worth. You know, it doesn't mean it's going to end up one way or another. Who knows?
It seems to me, in my own mind, that it would be a no-brainer that you would want people that went to school and got their degree as a pre-ATC over people who like may not even know anything about aviation. But yeah, that's a can of worms.
The lawsuit was filed in 2015, so draw your own conclusions from that.
Wow. I don't know if I'd heard about that. That seems to be a pretty cut and dry, though. Like, I mean, I feel like most people want people that were previously military. All right, we'll get on back with this. If we don't, we may not end up finishing tonight. I guess we're about halfway through and we got 20 minutes left. We should be right on schedule. Okay, what is a airspace flow program? An airspace flow program were introduced in summer 2006 and marked a significant new step in en-route traffic management. The principal goal for the initial development was to provide enhanced en-route traffic management during severe weather events. An AFP is a traffic management process that identifies constraints in the en route system, develops a real-time list of flights that are filed into the constrained area, and distributes edicts to meter the demand through the area. How does it work? If an AFP is issued and a flight is included, the pilot will receive an edict. Meeting the departure time is important because it allows traffic managers to properly meter flights through the constrained area being controlled by the AFP. When it's issued, the FAA will send an advisory that is accessible through that link, and it'll also appear on the FAA's OIS page. There's probably not much on there. Let me see. Okay, we'll let that load. At airports with an airport traffic control tower, controllers will provide you with the edict when you call for your clearance. If you are departing an airport without a control tower, you can determine if your flight has an edict by checking the website. The website will provide information regarding the location and reason for an airspace flow program. It can also provide a lookup function to determine your flight has received an edict. We are constantly looking these up and refreshing our pages to make sure, because sometimes the times get better and sometimes the time get worse, and that can affect when you board. It can affect all the times with the pilots like legal time issues. So I mean, that could be the difference. If it gets undelayed by an hour, that could be the difference between that pilot having to get reflowed or pulled off that flight, or all sorts of stuff. So we're constantly monitoring those, and if we can get our get the planes out earlier, we're always all over that. Okay, so with this airspace flow program, do you remember how in one of the videos the guy in the command center was talking about how the night before they will look at everything that's predicted and actually run a simulation to see what the next day looks like?
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, so this is kind of one of those things where they're going to be looking at stuff like this too. Like, okay, tomorrow, like, are we going to need an airspace flow program? Like, is that going to be something we might look into as the day goes on, if this weather develops, stuff like that? Let's check out this OIS page real quick. Ooh. So up here at the top, national programs, it's going to show us, actually, this is pretty good. This has like a horrible day to work. So it looks like if we looked at the weather, DFW is going to have holding for volume issues. Around Chicago is going to have thunderstorms. Philly's always got bad weather. It's not always sunny there. So it looks like O'Hare. Yeah, O'Hare is in a GDP. Seattle's in a GDP, and San Francisco is just in a completely ground stop, so they're not letting anybody off the ground. So the average delay is 199 minutes for the O'Hare ground delay program. Trevin, I hope you don't work tomorrow. You guys might be busy.
No, I work Wednesday to Saturday, so I'm good.
Oh, nice. O'Hare is a big hub for us, and that would probably be a nightmare tomorrow for them. This is the airport arrival rate that we were talking about earlier. This is basically the start time for this GDP, and then when it ends, although those get extended all the time. And the scope is basically like all the centers that it affects.
So in cases like this, how are they going to board all the planes and then have them sit in the plane for 199 minutes? Or are they going to have them wait in the terminal and then they'll say, okay, now we got a window, go ahead and get bored and get out of here?
Yeah, they'll hold them in the terminal. And they basically, because if we put them in the plane, then the pilots, Trevin could probably talk to you about the pilot time issues for hours. I don't know that much. I kind of only know like brief amounts, but it would, if we sat them in the plane for 199 minutes, then we would burn through so much of their time. And also, if you've ever sat in a CRJ 200 out on the tarmac during the summer, you've probably lost like a pound in water weight because they're really hot. It just no. So you would hold them in the terminal. The worst though is when go ahead.
Sorry, isn't the legal limit like 3 hours, or else you get fined like millions of dollars?
Yeah, so you have to have a plan to depart. So at 2 hours, you have to have a plan to depart, and then at 3 hours, you get like a huge fine. It's like $15,000 per passenger from the FAA. So you can't legally hold the passengers on for more than 3 hours. You have to let them off. Whenever there's stuff like this, and I have planes that have been out for like starting around an hour and a half, I always end up looking that up just to make sure of the legal wording of when we have to go back to the airport to let the passengers off for egress, which is basically just like we have to let them off to go to the bathroom and get food and stuff. This one is brutal. San Francisco must be awful right now because the update is not for another. What is Z time right now? Oh, I guess that's not that far off. This POE is probability of extension. Medium, that one's probably almost guaranteed going to extend. So they're basically just not letting anyone off the ground. So they don't have edicts. They just have you're not going yet. That's what a ground stop is. And then typically after a ground stop, they go into a ground delay program. Otherwise, every now and then you'll see if they go from a ground stop to nothing, everyone leaves their airports all at once, and then all of a sudden you have like a gazillion planes trying to get into the airport at the same time. Your carrier, when you get on with a carrier, they'll explain way more to you about what they want you to do as far as boarding up the passengers or not. So that's not something that I really doubt that on your check ride or whatever to get your license, they're going to ask you about would you board the passengers or not. So that's going to be something more your company's going to tell you about. In what weather scenarios do we expect to use predefined airspace flow programs? The anticipated weather scenarios will include lines or popcorn storms in New York metros or Boston areas, the Ohio Valley or Washington Center. Those are pretty much like the only place I've ever seen AFPs. But if there's a bunch of cells in New York Center, we're almost guaranteed going to get an airspace flow program going through there. The forecast should also include collaborative convective forecast product predictions of medium to high confidence in areas with greater than 50% coverage. After initial implementation, it is anticipated that the use of AFPs will be expanded for use not only in weather scenarios but also in high traffic demand scenarios. Will provide traffic managers with an additional tool to manage geographic areas that experience periods of complex high volume traffic. So this here, ground stops, we were talking about these kind of briefly. A ground stop is a procedure requiring an aircraft that meets specific criteria to remain on the ground. The ground stop may be airport specified, related to a geographical area, or equipment related. So one time not too long ago, all of SkyWest's aircraft, or all of SkyWest systems went down, and on this page right here, it said airport all update. I can't remember what it was, and then probability extension. I can't remember. It might have been medium, and then scope just said all SkyWest aircraft. So they basically issued a ground stop for all SkyWest planes because our systems were down, and I think I actually wasn't working that day, but from what I heard, we couldn't even get in contact with anyone. So somebody just called ATC and was like, okay, don't let any of them off the ground. And so ATC issued a ground stop for all SkyWest planes. Kind of cool. Actually, it's horrible, and I'm sure the company lost thousands of dollars. And yeah, it was mayhem, but just neat of how the system works. Or it could be a ground stop for weather, like the one we were looking at. Ground stops are implemented when air traffic control is unable to safely accommodate additional aircraft in the system. They are most frequently used for severely reduced capacity situations such as weather below user arrival minima, severe weather reducing usable routes, major equipment outages, catastrophic events, precluded extended periods of time, or extended periods of airborne holding, precluding sectors from reaching saturation levels, precluding airports from reaching gridlock. Also on these ground stops, another cool one that I've seen is during the winter when maybe Detroit or Denver or O'Hare is just socked in fog. All three of those airports have Cat 3s, and so it'll be ground stop, all except Cat 3, Cat 3 aircraft. So basically the aircraft that have those heads-up displays, the HUDs, and auto land, so they can basically just land in nothing. And they'll let those airplanes go because they can still land, but they'll hold everyone else on the ground. They won't let them go. Air traffic facilities may implement an internal ground stop for up to 30 minutes. If the ground stop is expected to continue longer, the center will assume control and may extend the time and expand the scope. An advisory will be issued by the center advising customers of the stop. Where can I get current status information on the ground stop? Ground stop information for delays of less than 15 minutes should be provided by ATC facility. Delays of 15 minutes or more are viewable on the web page. That's the OIS page we were just looking at. Find them under the header ground stops or delay info. Occasionally, aircraft inbound to an airport may be stopped over a specific fix. This information will be recorded on the OIS, also under the heading delay info. Additional guidance about interpreting the data is listed under the help button. What is a delay according to the FAA? Reportable delays occur when IFR aircraft are held on the ground or in flight for 15 minutes or more. Delays are a result from detaining an aircraft at the gate, short of the runway, on taxiway and or holding configuration anywhere en route. Are there any delays that are not reported? Linear holds, speed reductions, pilot-initiated deviations around weather cannot be accounted for and not included in the reporting process. Delays that are due to mechanical or other aircraft operating company problems are not reported. Taxi time spent under the control of non-FAA entities. Company or airport ramp towers are not included in delay calculations, nor those resulting from a non-standard departure request. So the speed reductions, that would be like for miles in trail, like we were talking about earlier. They might reduce someone's speed and to make them further back. How are delays measured and recorded? Delay calculations begin when the aircraft enters ATC jurisdiction, calls for taxi on ATC-controlled airport property, or enters a holding pattern. When delays are issued with a GDP, the edict minus the proposed departure time and the average taxi time equals the delay time. These delays are attributed to the arrival airport. Delay calculations end when the aircraft departs or exits holding. All airports have calculated average taxi times for all runway configurations. These values are not included in reported delays. Why do aircraft that push back, call for clearance, etc., after me depart ahead of me? Air traffic control operates on the first-come, first-served principle. However, controllers are expected to use their best judgment in determining the safest and most efficient flow of traffic, considering the different types of aircraft and whether priority handling has been required. Sometimes they're only letting like east departures go out or something like that. Is there any way to help mitigate delays? Use information available on the OIS page. In planning your flight to meet any special requirements that could affect your flight. Plan your flight to operate during the Plan your flight to operate during the least busy times at the airport or in areas of congested airspace. So when you run the company, you can do that. What does tier mean? So we kind of talked about that already, actually, what first tier and second tier mean. Why is it important? Because delay info and stuff like that will be posted by tier. The OIS page just provides current information about the national airspace. You use it a lot. It shows us our advisories, and our advisory is ground stop, GDP, AFP, route information, facility outages, PT advisories, volcanic activity bulletins, special traffic management programs. And that actually, there's a current advisories page. But a lot of that you can also get on the OIS page. What weather information tools do you use in making traffic management decisions? The traffic management personnel utilize numerous weather products to help formulate their plan for the day. The TAF, terminal area forecast, we'll go into those, I think, later on in the class when we start talking about more weather. Convective outlook forecasts with most severe thunderstorms in the U.S. for the next 18 hours. They're updated several times throughout the day. Collaborative convective forecast product is a forecast that, or for intense convective activity made for 2, 4, 6-hour periods by group consisting of the National Weather Service, the Aircraft Operations Center Weather Units, and the Meteorological Service of Canada. And it's discussed, critiqued, changed, all sorts of stuff. So when it comes to de-icing and anti-icing, most of that stuff is going to be by airport, so that's not really going to be like posted on the OIS. Like you're not hardly going to see a GDP for de-icing or something, or well, it wouldn't be a GDP anyway because you're departing from it. But I don't think you'd ever really see it on here. I don't know if I ever have, or maybe I haven't looked for it. This just says well, actually, so maybe they do. Okay, so yeah, I guess you can look for it on the OIS page. We have another tool that we use actually at SkyWest that is on our own website. Let's see if I can show you. We can look by station and see what we've got. So I bet let's see what San Francisco's current taxi times are. Taxi times are good actually. Our last in the average in the last 2 hours is 17 minutes. Okay, so swaps, severe weather avoidance plans. SWAP is a formalized program that is developed for areas susceptible to disruption in an air traffic flows caused by thunderstorms. Each air traffic facility may develop its own strategy for managing the severe weather event. Their plan then becomes part of the overall daily operations plan. Is there a plan for managing traffic flow in severe weather? As each weather event is unique, the response is tailored to meet that specified forecast and actual events of the day. The SWAP plan is issued through the planning team. Can I get a copy of it? The plan, available to all users, is published as an advisory under the PT. Additionally, routes issued to support of the SWAP are issued as route advisories by the center. They may be found at the flyfaa.gov. What can I do in response to the SWAP? Inform yourself about conditions in the national airspace and plan appropriately to prepare to respond to rapidly changing weather conditions that may require new routes, often longer, to be issued. Basically, that says plan fuel accordingly. So if they start issuing swaps and you see that they're going to be routing planes around a whole bunch of thunderstorms, it's a real good time to add fuel or build your own route. But even sometimes they don't take your route because they're spacing everyone out and they push you further over, and may still be a good idea to add fuel. Why do I get delayed on the ground when the weather is VFR? There may be times when the weather en route or at your destination airport prevents your departure rather than the weather at your departure airport. So like en route stuff. If aircraft are all deviating or being funneled through a small opening in the weather, traffic becomes very condensed and complex, thereby requiring additional traffic management initiatives. On the other hand, if the airport destination has a reduced arrival rate For some reason, you may be delayed because of TMIs or compliance with GDP. So this is basically saying sometimes even though your arrival and departure airports are beautiful, you might get rerouted anyway because of a confined airspace or something like that. Why does ATC reroute me? To ensure you stay with the flow of traffic, remain clear of special use airspace, avoid congested airspace, into areas of known weather where aircraft are deviating and refusing to fly. How do I find out what ATC wants me to file? Basically, you go to the OIS page or that advisories page. Why do I get routed so far from my requested route when it appears there is no weather on the route I filed? As flow of traffic are removed to accommodate severe weather, the traffic that would have been on the non-impacted route may be moved to manage volume issues. What if I don't file the route ATC wants me to file? So if you see an advisory and they are posting a reroute and you don't file it, normally air traffic controllers will clear you via the route specified by the traffic management. You will be rerouted in the air or on the ground. Normally the operator should file or amend flight plans with the appropriate routes when the aircraft is 45 minutes or more from the proposed departure time. ATC facilities will enter reroutes for active flights or normally for flights less than 45 minutes from departure. What if I can't accept the route due to safety of flight or fuel concern? You are required to notify the controller you cannot accept the route for safety reasons. The controller will work with you to find an acceptable route. However, there may be occasions when you have to divert to a different airport. In accordance with FAR, all operators have the right to refusal of a specific route and may elect an alternative. Alternatives include, but are not limited to, ground delay diversions or to another airport, or request to stay on the filed route. Most of the time, they're not going to give you the filed route. If you show up without the fuel, they're just going to make you go back and get more fuel. Or they're just going to not clear you and make you sit on the ground and think about what you've done. Who should I coordinate with beforehand if I know I can't accept the route? You should notify the clearance delivery controller if you cannot accept the route issued. If possible, an alternative will be offered. However, there may be no alternatives, and you could be required to accept a delay on the ground until the route becomes available. So that's probably more likely is they'll just delay you until they can send you on something else. But most of the time, they'll just tell you to go back to the gate and get more fuel. What is a preferred route? A route that is requested and has been published by ATC to inform users of the normal traffic flows between airports. Why were they developed? They were developed to increase system efficiency and capacity by having balanced traffic flows among high-density airports, as well as de-conflicting traffic flows where possible. Where can I find them? They're listed in the Airport Facilities Directory and on the RMT on the OIS. Sometimes when you're going to build routes, if you just take parts of other routes, like your company routes, and file those as a whole different part of the route, you actually get them cleared because that's where they wanted them anyway. So it's kind of cool. Like the other day, I had to build a really long route to burn off a bunch of extra fuel from Dothan to Atlanta. And so I flew them direct from Dothan to Augusta and then copy and pasted the route from Augusta to Atlanta at the end of it. And they cleared them on it perfectly. So they have the preferred routes from different areas. When I file a preferred route, why am I immediately issued a new route on departure? There may be other constraints of the system, severe weather that is disrupting normal traffic flow. If you believe the preferred route is erroneous because you never received the route, please contact the departure center with your questions. What are coded departure routes, or CDRs? CDR is a combination of coded air traffic routing and refined coordination procedures. They are designed to mitigate potential adverse impacts to ATC and users during periods of severe weather or other events that impact the national airspace. Where can I find these CDRs? The routes are located on the RMT of the OIS. How will I know when to use them? ATC will issue an advisory when CDRs are in effect, and they may be listed on the ops plan for potential use. Can I use them normally? Only those who have been signed a letter of agreement with the FAA are eligible to use the CDRs between the city pairs of the coded format. However, anyone can file a route that corresponds to a CDR. Any pilot may file the route listed in the CDR route string if the field labeled user file contains a Y and the FAA considered making CDRs available to all users. So these CDRs you can actually find on this OIS page. I just clicked the big globe. What? No. I think you may have to have a login to get to half the stuff on here. Okay, I guess I can't show you all that. Oh wait, here we go. So you can go in here to the route management tool. Coded departure routes. You put your route origin, Denver to OKC. Oh, whoops. You can submit the search and you can find these. And so if coordination is required, if you have to coordinate with ATC to file this, there'll be a Y in there. But anyway, these are all these like they're basically like preferred routes around bad weather. So I picked Denver because there's a lot of thunderstorms around Denver. And so if you look at this last letter and this last letter and the last number here, this is the east 1, the east 6, the north 1, north 6, south 1, south 6, west 1, west 6. Those are basically the preferred routes around the typical areas of thunderstorms. And like right now, all our releases contain all the fuel burns for all these CDRs. So we can actually fuel up for these CDRs, and then sometimes they're given the CDRs even if we didn't file them. So we would just say like plan to normal but fueled for CDRs. This looks way different than it normally does. So either the FAA did an update or I don't know. This This shows all your reroutes. But anyway, we'll get back to this and I'll see if I can finish up real quick and then okay, we got 4 pages left, so just bear with me and I'll try and get through this stuff. National Playbook is a collection of swap routes that have been pre-validated and coordinated with impacted air traffic control centers. They may be used to support of convective weather, military operations, and other situations. How do I know when they're in effect and when I can use them? So the center will issue an advisory stating playbook or modified playbook routes when they're in effect and will be published in the ops plan. How do I find out if it applies to me? A lot of this stuff you'll have these these websites you'll have saved once you start working, and they'll just be like saved in a folder and you'll have access to them like right there. What if I don't know and don't file the playbook route? Air traffic controllers will issue the route either before departure or while airborne. So sometimes even if you don't file it, like I was saying, we'll still fuel plan for it, and then ATC will decide what they think is best. What is flow evaluation area, flow constrained area, and how are they different? Developed on an ad hoc basis, they are both three-dimensional volumes of airspace along with flight filters and a time interval used to identify flights. They may be drawn graphically around weather, or they may be based on a national airspace element such as a VORTAC. They are used to evaluate demand on a resource. They're different because an evaluation area is just under study, like a constrained area requires action to address a particular situation. How do I find out about these? You will know about one because the route advisor will indicate that the impact of an FCA, or the impact area as an FCA. How can I view it graphically? At this time, only authorized government users and CDM participants have access to viewing FEAs and FCAs. How do I know one impacts me? You may not. You may fly through an FCA if you are not one of the filtered flights that has been designated to remain clear of the airspace. If you are one of the filtered flights, you will receive a route that remains clear of the FCA. If I don't file around it, ATC will issue a route that remains clear of the FCA if appropriate. Priority handling. Aircraft that meet specific criteria receive expeditious handling to the extent possible. Controllers are expected to use good judgment in determining their ability to provide priority handling based on the existing conditions. Do any flights get priority handling? An aircraft in distress has right-of-way over all other aircraft. Priority may be provided to lifeguard flights, NRP program participants, diversions, and other types of flights requesting special assistance. How do I let you know I'm eligible and requesting priority handling? The Aeronautical Information Manual and pertinent advisory circulars provide guidance on types of flights eligible for priority handling. They also explain how to indicate the information on your flight plan. Flight departures should be aware of programs available for them for priority handling and how this information is forwarded to the FAA. Diversion recovery. Diversion recovery refers to the effort made to return diversions to their original intended destination. So if your flight diverts and you file diversion recovery, which is you would file that when you file your flight plan, you get a priority handling. So the flight schedule monitor software has an auto detection algorithm that indicates a flight has changed its destination, while airborne and subsequently files a flight plan to the original destination. Additionally, if the flight plan contains the acronym diversion in the remarks section of the flight plan, the information is displayed on a separate web page so that the traffic management personnel are aware of the diversion and take action for expeditious handling to the extent possible. Do they get priority handling? Tries to provide priority handling to diversions. However, there may be times when situation prevents ATC from providing this service. What if I forget to put diversion on my flight plan? You may call your airline representative, professional organization representative, or notify the air traffic facility of your status as a diversion. High-density traffic airports. High-density traffic airports are specified in Title 14 of the Code of FAR, Part 93, and Subpart K. Currently, the following airports require unscheduled operations to acquire a reservation prior to operating at the airport. JFK, DCA, LaGuardia, O'Hare, and Newark. How do I get a reservation for a high-density traffic airport? You may receive a reservation through the airport reservation office. And so basically those airports you just can't fly all willy-nilly to. All right, does anybody have any questions? I know I went over that last stuff kind of quick.
No?
Okay.
Hey, on Friday, Garrett said we were going to be taking a quiz on Tuesday. Did he give you any information to review before that? I think that's what he said. I might be wrong, but I think that's what I heard.
Let me look. He sent me an update over text.
He said Tuesday or Wednesday we'll take the quiz.
Looks like Wednesday.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah. I hope he didn't change his mind, but he texted me that on Saturday. So, yeah, it looks like Wednesday. So the advisories page is on this OIS page, and then you go to advisories database. This looks totally different than it looks at work. Oh, here we go. Okay. So this is like all the advisories of going on right now. So San Fran just canceled their ground stop. Or no, that's Midway. San Fran canceled their... got a ground stop. I guess they haven't canceled it yet, but they rolled out a delay program. I don't know. This operations plan is got a lot of really good stuff on it. This kind of comes in, and I always check this, well, throughout the day, but this is like one of the first things I check in the beginning of the day. If I logged on and saw this, I would know that I was in for a really bad day. Like O'Hare, Seattle, Midway, Philly, DC, Seattle, San Fran, Atlanta, the New Yorks, Denver. I could go ahead and look and see that it's just going to be a bad day. But this kind of gives you a heads up of like what everything is in for and why. So like if there's going to be delays places and why that may be possible. So it kind of breaks it down to terminal constraints, airport closures or runway closures, sorry, en route stuff. Yeah, this gives you good stuff. But that's what they were talking about on the ops plan and the advisory page. This is the advisory page. All right, well, if you guys have any questions, let me know. Is everybody good?
Yeah.
All right. Sorry we kind of ran long tonight, but I will talk to y'all again Wednesday.
Sounds good. Thank you.
you.
All right.
Night.
All right.